to you about how to identify key market pivot points using Climax analysis. This is a market indicator, so this isn't really an indicator set that you would use per se to trade a stock. But as we often say at Decision Point, you need to know the trend and condition of the market. You need to map out the weather. You need to know where the storms are. You need to know if weather is good. You need to make sure that before you start opening your positions, that you are in a good market environment, or that you at least understand whether you're in maybe not the best market environment. Right now, we're kind of in a mixed area of the market. We've gotten some weakness that appeared last week, trying to gain some strength right now. So now we're trying to figure out really where does the market want to go now. I don't have a recent climax for you today, but I have one that came, a couple of them that came earlier. They don't happen every day. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about them. First, about me, my education. I have a math degree from USC. I have a master's in information resource management from the Air Force Institute of Technology. I used to be in the Air Force, and I have over 22 years of studying the markets. Honestly, more than that. I've been looking at the markets since I was in high school. I just wasn't a serious technical analyst at the beginning. I started to learn more as I went through my studies. I am a member of the CMT and IFTA, and my website is decisionpoint.com. I'm the vice president and senior technical analyst there. Stockcharts.com and Stock Charts TV. I actually don't do any Stock Charts TV anymore. We have our own website at DP Alert. I need to update this slide for you, but I have been a consulting senior technical analyst with them for over 11 years. And I'm host of the Decision Point Trading Room, but I'll tell you more about that later. So how to identify market climax days? That's what we're going to talk about. So first of all, of course, I'm going to talk to you about what is a market climax day. We're going to look at the different indicators that I use to identify those market climaxes. Those are the volume ratios. I don't know if you use those, but they're very interesting. And in fact, the volume ratio today told us some very interesting information that I will talk to you about and that I will be telling my subscribers about in my DP Alert publication that I send out every market day with all of the information you need to know about the trend and condition of the market. All right, I have somebody coming in my front door. I don't need to be there, but they may make some noise. All right, so net advanced decline and volume are also what we study. We look at total volume as part of our identification of market climaxes. We also use the VIX, and we have upside climaxes and downside climaxes. So you are looking at upside initiations or downside initiations, or you're looking at upside exhaustions or downside exhaustions. And we'll go through those as we look at some of these charts. But the identification, I will admit, is the hardest part. But I'll give you some helpful hints and clues. And then what I'm going to do for you is I have my climax chart that I use on stockcharts.com, and I will give people who are viewing this presentation a copy of that chart if they want to use it for themselves. If you aren't a Stock Charts member, you'll be able to see the chart, but I couldn't tell you whether it will update properly or anything like that. But if you're a Stock Charts member, it'll definitely work for you. Just send me an email. We'll talk about that a little later too. So what is a climax day? A climax day tells us the market bias and the thrust of a trading day. These are typically going to be the end of a move or the beginning of a new move, So these are really exhaustion type events. You're getting a thrust on the upside or downside for an initiation, and you're getting an exhaustion on an upside exhaustion day where the market it's thrust upward, but then it's setting up for an upside exhaustion, and we should look for the market to turn the other way. So let's talk a little bit about upside, downside initiations and exhaustions. Upside climaxes are, you're going to see very high positive readings. You're going to see information that is clearly bullish. You'll see a big move a lot of times in price. You're going to see some very high positive readings on those up-down volume ratios. You'll see when we look at the charts, you'll know it's a climax day by looking at what's going on. Determining whether it's an upside or downside initiation or exhaustion is where it can be difficult. But upside climaxes, you're going to see very high positive readings. Downside climaxes, you're going to see high negative readings. So this explains what an upside climax and a downside climax is. But now we have to talk about those initiations and exhaustions. So an exhaustion is basically telling you that that move that you just got, okay, so let's say we have some high positive readings and we get an upside climax. Isn't it exhaustion or is it an initiation of a new move? Well, really what you have to do is look at what has been going on prior. Have we been in a decline and now we're getting a big move to the upside? Or are we at the top of a rally and we're getting an upside climax? That might mean it's an exhaustion. If it's coming after, price has been moving down for a while and you get those positive readings, that's going to be an upside initiation. So an exhaustion ends the current trend, and then you have an initiation, and that is going to begin a new trend to the downside or to the upside, depending on what kind of a climax it is. So the indicators I use to identify this, the NYSE and the S&P volume ratios, we use net advances and declines. We use the net advances and declines in volume as well. And then we look at the volatility index. Is it above or below the Bollinger Bands? That's kind of what we pay attention to mostly. And then we look at total volume. Is it a blowout day? Did we get like ridiculous volume to the upside or downside? Maybe that's a blowout or a blow off. And then we look at new highs and new lows. That's also a good indicator of what's going on as far as the day is concerned, whether it's a climax day or not. All right, so here's our first chart. This is of the NYSE. And as you can see, this is just the up and down volume ratios. So you can see that on the green vertical dotted lines, those are considered upside climaxes. So if it's green, it's an upside climax. Whether it's an initiation or exhaustion is what we're going to talk about. When you get these very high down-up volume ratios, and you're going to see a downside. You'll have price go down, and then you'll get these big readings on down up volume. And that's telling you that something's going on under the surface. So any of the red lines, the dotted lines, are downside climaxes. Green ones are upside climaxes. But then there's the job of figuring out whether it's an upside whether it's an initiation or an exhaustion. I know this is kind of confusing, so I'm trying to take it slow. All right. So let's look at a couple here here's a couple of obvious ones right here. So we had very high up, down, up volume. We have a arbitrary line of 3. So if you get above 3 on your down up volume ratio, that's considered a climactic reading. When you get above 3 on the up down volume ratio, that is that arbitrary threshold, then you know if it's gotten above it, that is a climax day. So here's our first climax right here that I'm going to talk about. This was a downside climax. Where is it coming in the move? It's coming after a decline. And then we get this really high thrust to the downside. And that usually means we've got an exhaustion climax because it's exhausting this move that we saw prior. So in this case, the downside exhaustion climax told us that we should expect the move to change to the upside, that might be a moment in time where we're going to get that upside reversal. Well, it turned out that we did get an upside reversal, and a big one. We had this up down volume ratio get above our 3.0 threshold. Hold on just a moment. I have to do something. I have a little dog who likes to be at my feet when I do these, and he wasn't here, so he had to come in. All right, so we had these volume readings, the up-down volume ratio went over our 3.0 threshold. That told us that we had an upside climax. And again, now we have to determine it's an upside climax, but is it an initiation or is it an exhaustion? And in this case, it's coming off of this decline. It also happens to be coming off of this downside exhaustion climax. So more than likely, what we're looking at here is an upside initiation that we should expect higher prices to come along. It gets a little more difficult. Like this one here is, it came in, it comes off of a big decline right here, but it wasn't a declining trend. It's coming after an initiation, an upside initiation. So the next thing we should expect is an exhaustion. So this was an upside exhaustion climax, and we did see some consolidation, but we were in the midst of a pretty nice move. And so we didn't end up seeing, a huge reversal like we did on these here. The best ones do come like this, where they're coming right off of a decline. And when they come straight off of a decline into the upside, those are really the best ones to note. So in this case, we got a climactic reading, a downside climax. And the question was, is this an initiation or is this a exhaustion? And we didn't have much of a decline to go into it, and in fact had an up day. And the rising trend told us that this honestly should have been a downside exhaustion climax. It did not end up being an exhaustion. These aren't perfect, but I have to show you the ones that don't work out as well as the ones that do work out. Here's the really nice setup here with a downside climax. It's a clear exhaustion of a current downtrend, and it told us to expect more price to move to the upside. And then here we go. You can see that we got an upside climax, an initiation climax to higher prices, and that worked out well. This is a downside climax. It's coming off of a rising trend. So more than likely, this would be an initiation to downside movement. And that's what we got. And then we ended up with another downside climax coming off of an initiation. This would be your exhaustion. So we had an exhaustion of the declining trend, and we ended up getting a nice reversal to the upside. So this is kind of what we're looking at for the up, down, and down, up volume ratios. I know they're available on stockcharts.com. I'm not sure about other platforms. Here is the SPY going through a similar situation. where we have the downside upside climaxes. We can start over here. This one's pretty obvious. You've got price moving in a decline here. We got this hugely high reading on the down up volume. So we knew it was a climax day. And it came off of a decline. So the most likely culprit was that it was an exhaustion, not an initiation. And then we got another climax. This doesn't always happen. It seems to be happening on this chart a lot, but we don't always get the next day as another climax day. Sometimes we do, but not always. And in this case, again, it came off of the decline. It came off of a downside exhaustion. So it was an upside initiation climax. And you can see that price continued higher from there. This was a big congestion phase here. Clearly, these were kind of whipsaw signals, made it difficult to figure out what was going on here. But in the best guess we would have had at the time, this came off of this downside climax came off of a rising trend. So that was a downside initiation. We didn't get the down move until 2 days later, but we got another climax. That's coming off an initiation, so it has to be an exhaustion. So we should be expecting prices to turn to the upside. That's what we got. And amazingly enough, we got another climax day. It was an upside initiation, and we did see price move higher from there. But you can see things got very congested in here. And so we had a lot of these climactic readings on the up down and the down up volume. And so it made it a little more tricky. But these are the things you're looking for. Now here is using the net advanced declines. As you can see, we have thresholds for these as well, and that is at 300. So minus 300 and positive 300 for the net advances declines. And in the case of the net advanced decline volume, it's minus 2,000 to plus 2,000. Those are our thresholds. So when you see it go outside of those thresholds, that means you have a climax day. And the chart we use actually has all of these all on one chart. That's the chart that I will give you, but I wanted to go through these separately just to give you a sense of what you're looking for on each of these indicators. So as you can see, net advances declines. We had these days where we had volume pop. In this case, we are coming off of decline, and this has to be an upside initiation. This came off a decline, this downside climax, that needed to be an exhaustion of the current move here. That was an initiation to the downside, and you can see we got a climactic reading right in there. So these are kind of the setups here that you're looking for net advances and declines. And again, when you compare these with the up-down ratios, it gives you an even better sense of what might be going on as far as the climactic activity of the market at the time. So on the VIX, we invert our VIX and we use it on a log scale, and we use Bollinger Bands. So the Bollinger Bands tell us when we have a climax type of situation. And you can see that when the VIX goes below the lower Bollinger Band, that means that the readings are very high. Again, we invert this. So you got the penetration of that lower Bollinger Band, and that signaled a climax day. In this case, a downside climax. It's a lot of times when you get the VIX penetrating these bands, you look for the opposite to happen. When we get these oversold readings on the VIX, this is why we invert the VIX. So oversolds on the bottom and overboughts on the top. But with the VIX, when you get these climactic moves with the penetration of these Bollinger Bands, you don't have to determine whether it's an upside climax or not. It's always an upside climax for the VIX when it comes down below its lower Bollinger Band. And this is something that you can watch pretty easily on most charts and most charting platforms. And you'll notice when you do get these penetrations of the Bollinger Bands, they usually line up pretty well with upside moves. And in the case of the VIX on the top half, it would be a downside move. But in this case, the VIX was playing mostly with the lower Bollinger Band. And so I've marked where it went through the Bollinger Band. And you can see that it really came on price just at the right time. These are almost perfect, um, representations of what to expect on price with just the VIX. So I don't know how many of you use the VIX, and maybe you should consider using it with Bollinger Bands, because I have to say, the VIX is very good at catching these climax events, these exhaustion or initiation type events. All right, here is the SPY. This is from September 23rd of 2021, just to give you some context. And you can see here, we have marked the VIX where it's penetrated the lower band. So that gives us that hint. We look at total volume just to see again where it lines up with its annual average. And that can tell you if you have a blow-off event or a blowout type of event, or it also just tells you whether there's conviction with whatever move there is. I've marked here with pink asterisks the days for options expiration. We don't really consider these total volume days where we get these spikes as part of our analysis, because it's skewed because of options expiration. And you get very, very high volume on those days, typically low volatility. All right. What else do I want to tell you about this chart? There's my PMO turning up, getting ready to head back up higher. So this is the climax chart that we do in the decision point alert every day. This is where you'll get, if you subscribe to the DP alert, you don't have to worry about identifying climaxes. I do that for you. So something to consider as far as a subscription to our DP alert, which is only $50 a month. It's really not a lot of money. And it gives you a daily look at what's happening in the market. We cover not only the market in general, but we look at Bitcoin and crude oil and bonds and yields and the dollar and gold miners. So we cover quite a bit in that DP alert. So you really have a great idea of what's going on in the market that particular day. And it sets you up for your trades the next day, because you'll know what to expect in the market. And these climax days really help with that. So again, what we look for are these readings that pass our thresholds. As I said, remember, minus 2,000, plus 2,000, minus 300, plus 300. So you can see the days we marked. So here's an example of a day that we marked where we got high up-down volume. This was primarily the reason it was a climax day, was because this particular indicator popped above our threshold. But it wasn't a very strong climax day. And I say that because the VIX was kind of in the middle of the Bollinger Bands. We didn't get climactic readings on the net advances and declines or net advance decline volume. So it was kind of a wishy-washy downside climax day, but we had to kind of figure out where we were going. And since really primarily before that climax came in, we were mostly moving sideways and a little bit lower, this would have been considered a downside exhaustion climax, which would have implied that we were going to get more upside. And that's actually what ended up happening, despite the fact it wasn't really one of our stronger type climax days. Here's an initiation right here. There is the rising trend. We had a down day, then we got a very strong down day. You can see our net AD came through. We had oh, I'm looking at this closely and I see only this particular one. So it wasn't a particularly strong climax day, but it did turn out to give us what we wanted, and that was more decline. This one came in, you can see this is the kind of climax day we're looking for, where we get net AD to be above that, or in this case, below minus 300, getting the net advanced decline volume below minus 2000. You can see the VIX penetrated the lower Bollinger Band. You've got the high total volume we have to dismiss because it has the pink asterisks, which means it was on options expiration. So this wasn't a blow-off event. This this was options expiration. But also you can see when we come down here, look at the up-down volume, the down-up volume on the NYSE and on the S&P. Super high, really big spikes on that. So this was a very strong climax day. It came off of a decline. This was a downside exhaustion. And sure enough, what did we get? We got a nice rally and a nice reversal. And that is because it came here with the VIX. It came here with the strong negative readings. And then the very next day, we had a very strong upside climax. We ended up, you can see here, with net AD coming in above our threshold. Look at the up-down volume bars, very, very high. And the VIX still penetrating the lower Bollinger Band. And remember, the VIX penetrating the lower Bollinger Band, you should start looking for some upside. And sure enough, we got that upside initiation, came through and gave us some very good readings here. This one right here came in. This is a little bit of a, this I would have expected to be a down or an upside exhaustion, an exhaustion of the current move upward, but that didn't end up coming to fruition. You can see the VIX penetrated the upper Bollinger Band. Typically, that means you're going to see a decline the next day. There were a lot of things here. These weren't very strong readings on the up-down volume, though, I have to say. But ultimately, we would have come across with this as a downside exhaustion. It didn't turn out to work out that way. But again, they don't work completely, but they work a lot of the time, a lot of the time. All right. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot more to discuss. I'm going to show you the DP alert, and I'm going to show you where you can find this particular climax chart. What I would and David, if you're there, if you could put my email address in the chat, it's support@decisionpoint.com, or it's Erin@decisionpoint.com. If you get in touch with me, I will send you a copy of that climax chart that we just looked at. Let me go back. Oops. Yes. So this particular chart, I will give you for free. All you have to do is send me an email. If you're a Stock Charts member, it'll be very easy for you to add this to your own chart list. If you're not a Stock Charts member, you'll still be able to view the chart. I just don't know. You'll have to keep the link, I think, and pull up the link every time you wanted to look at the chart. But it's still something you could look at on stockcharts.com as a free member. It still should be available to you if you go to it through my link. So I will send you a link to this chart so you can start covering climax analysis for yourself. But as I said, with the Decision Point Daily, you're going to get all of those market conditions covered. You're going to have Bitcoin, crude oil, gold, dollar, as I said, yields, bonds. And I highlight participation with the golden and silver cross indexes, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about on when I walk you through my report. Climax analysis is included, like I said, and the Swenlin trading oscillators, those are our primary short-term indicators. I will tell you that they just turned up today, so that's very interesting. I'm still thinking the market looks kind of weak right now, but my Swenlin trading oscillators are telling me that maybe we're not going to get a big decline here. Then I also have my IT breadth momentum and volume momentum indicators as well for the intermediate term. And that gives you a really good look at what's going on as far as thrust and breadth. And we follow those along with other participation indicators. But like I said, I'm going to walk you through that because I think that that we're seeing a lot of good stuff. This is my free live trading room. I do it on Mondays. You can sign up for it from our website. I'll show you how to do that. And basically, it is free. I go in there with my father, Carl Swenlin, and we look at the charts you might want to look at going into the week. We do symbol requests. We cover the market in general. And we have a really great group of people who even have come up with their own email threads and that kind of thing just from being in the chat room at our trading rooms, getting to know each other. So it's a great place to go and learn and find out more. All right, let me go and share a different screen here. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to walk you through my current report that I'm going to be writing as soon as I finish here. I haven't quite finished it, but I'm going to walk you through it so you can see what's going on. All right. I haven't figured out what my lead's going to be yet, but I think it's going to be the fact that I got a new PMO crossover sell signal today. So as you can see, the market was up today. This, again, we're walking through a DP alert report. So you're going to get all of the up-to-date information. You're getting a free report right now as I speak through this. And like I said, it'll give you an idea of what we do. And certainly I would invite you to get a subscription with us. I do have a special that I'm going to run and show you shortly. So the market did find support, you can see right here, and we did form a bullish engulfing candlestick today. So that does suggest to me that we could continue to see prices rise off this level. But the problem I have is that the PMO has just given me a crossover sell signal, and that's a problem. It's not a terrible, terrible problem because the PMO is still well above the zero line. So that's good. We're still seeing relative strength or some internal strength there. But ultimately, that PMO sell signal is a bit of a problem. And though we're holding support here, there is a chance that we're going to return to some of the weakness we saw earlier this week, or late last week, I should say. This is the 1-year chart. Basically, it includes stochastics. The other one does not. This is the chart I usually use to talk about the VIX and stochastics. Right now, the VIX is very close to its moving average on my inverted scale. It is above the moving average on the inverted scale, and that tells me that there is still some internal strength in the market. I like to see the VIX above its moving average on my inverted scale. Remember, I invert it because the top should be overbought and the bottom should be oversold. The VIX is oversold when it's on that lower Bollinger Band, and it's overbought when it gets above that upper Bollinger Band. You can see stochastics are still in decline. So between the PMO sell signal and stochastics being in decline, I'm not inclined to believe that we're on our way to another good size rally. I don't see it. When we look at the new highs, new lows chart, we had a rally today, but notice new lows contracted and new highs, new highs contracted, new lows expanded. We keep track of the 10-day moving average of the high-low differential. And you can see that that's flat to kind of trending lower. So again, not good support for a good bull market rally to get started here. I mean, like I said, I think we could still see prices move up a little bit here, but ultimately not so much. So here is our updated Climax chart. So I'm going to go through the last couple of climaxes that we had on the Climax chart. As you can see today, we didn't have any Climax readings, but when we do discuss exactly what we're thinking as far as the Climax, whether it's an upside, a downside, initiation, or exhaustion. We go right into that so you'll know exactly what's going on. So let's go ahead and start back here. This Climax came in. You can see that the up-down volume, net advanced decline volume was there. And you can see we did get the up-down volume ratio on the S&P was there. We didn't quite see those climactic readings on the other two indicators, however. So it was kind of a mediocre Climax day, but nonetheless, it was coming off of a decline. So this was an upside initiation Climax. We got a downside day the next day, but the trend did change and it moved higher. Here's on next Climax day. This was a downside or an upside. It's an upside because it's a positive day. It was an upside exhaustion Climax. Now, we didn't see a whole lot of decline out of this upside exhaustion. And before you know it, we ended up with an upside initiation Climax that came in later. So we ended up getting a little bit of upside from there. Then we ended up with these climactic readings. You can see on the net AD for the SPY and for the down up volume ratio on the NYSE. Again, only 2 of our 4 indicators gave us that information. The VIX is still in the middle of the zone here, so it wasn't giving us much. So this was a little bit of a mild downside Climax, and it was an initiation. So we did end up seeing some decline coming in off of that. This upside initiation was incredibly timely. Now, of course, it came in the Monday before or Tuesday. Yeah, it came in Tuesday before the election. So maybe there was something going on under the surface we didn't know about. But you can see the net AD and net AD volume. We had NYSE up-down volume and the S&P up-down volume ratio. In both cases, those were climactic readings. So this was a very strong upside initiation Climax. And sure enough, we ended up getting the follow through. And then this last Climax that came in last week, we had, you can see there's the net AD volume came in above our threshold. And we had the NYSE down up come in above our threshold. This one was really close to the threshold, but I don't think it got above it, if I recall. In any case, notice the VIX very close to the upper Bollinger Band. Whenever we get those penetrations, remember that's usually a sign that you're going to get a reversal in some way, shape, or form. And if it's the upper part of the band on this inverted scale, then you're going to expect a downside move. So we got the climactic readings. We had the VIX near the upper Bollinger Band. This was a very clear downside initiation Climax, which we called to our subscribers. And certainly it turned out to be doing what we expected it to do. I would have loved to have seen a Climax day today to figure out where we're going to go from here now that we're sitting on this support level. But ultimately, the VIX is above its moving average right now, so there is still some internal strength, as we talked about earlier. All right, short-term indicators. These are my Swenlin trading oscillators. They have turned up. Like I said, I have to double check this one to make sure it turned up, but it looks like it did. So that's a good sign for the market that the Swenlin trading oscillators turned up in oversold territory. But this is a big problem for me. This is the percent of stocks above their 50-day or their 20-day moving average, their 20-day exponential moving average. Notice that less and less stocks are above their 20-day EMA. I mean, wouldn't you think that if we're near all-time highs right now, we're not that far off from them, wouldn't you expect that a lot more than half of the S&P would be above the 20-day EMA? Not so. You can also see that PMO's rising. That's my price momentum oscillator. How many have rising momentum? That's also starting to be shed. And that's on a rally day. So there's some weakness there. This is not a done deal. The intermediate term breadth momentum and volume momentum are both still headed lower. The percent of crossover buy signals is headed lower. Only half of the index currently has a PMO above the signal line. So there's there's internal problems. This is our bias chart. And as you can see, we've got our silver cross index and our golden cross index. These are great indicators. I will be doing another presentation on them in the not so distant future. You want to sign up for my free email list, and that's a good way to get in and get an opportunity to see that presentation for free. All right, here are negative divergences on percent of stocks above their 20, 50, and 200-day EMAs. That's a problem. Again, you're near all-time highs. Why aren't we seeing the participation that we should of stocks above their 20 and 50-day moving averages? The Silver Cross Index measures how many stocks have a 20-day EMA above the 50-day EMA. That is in decline. The Golden Cross Index tells us how many stocks have a Golden Cross, or a 50-day moving average above the 200-day EMA. And you can see that's also in decline. So ultimately, we are having some issues here. And I would be a little bit concerned at this point as to the market actually holding on to the level that we're seeing. All right. Oh, I was going to show you really quick here. Let me see if I can go back, and then I'll close it down because it looks like I am just about ready to end. Let's see. I need to go. Where is it that I want? No. I guess I have to stop the share. I wanted to take you to my website. Oh, what happened? Okay. All right. Let me show you how to get to my website. That's pretty important here. So, all right, here we go. So if you just go to decisionpoint.com, here's my homepage, tells you all about us. I have a video that tells you more about us. These are the subscriptions that we have. Decision Point Diamonds gives us 10 stock and ETF picks per week. DP Alert is what I just walked you through at $50 a month. And I have the new Decision Point Scan Alert system where I give you the stock symbols that come out of my exclusive Decision Point Diamond scans. And I send that to you at the end of the market day. So you'll have a group of symbols that have already been scrubbed, if you will, and give you a good idea of what you might want to look at going into the next day. But if you come to our homepage, you can sign up right here. This is where you register for my free trading room. And here's where you can give me your email address. And that way you'll be able to be notified when I do free videos, when I do my presentations, as well as any free material we publish. So that's the area you can go to for that. All right, now let's go back to, let me give you my special offer here. There it is. First, the key takeaways. Climax They mark pivot points in the market. We can identify the upside or downside thrust based on those net advanced declines and up-down ratios, down-up ratios. Exhaustions of moves are obvious. Initiation of moves become obvious. And the DP alert keeps you informed of all the climax days. So here you go. Your special right now is 75% off your first month off of any of those subscriptions that I gave you. And then we always run a trial for our stuff. You can try us out for 2 weeks using the coupon code DP Trial 2 or DP Save 75 if you want 75% off your subscription for the first month. So go ahead and take a look, and that's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions. Let's see. Do you weight all indicators the same weight, or is there ones that you prioritize? As far as climax analysis, I don't really weight any of them more than any others. It's really a matter of what they're doing in concert with each other. You know, I'm really concerned about, you know, maybe one indicator is doing one thing, but if I'm not getting confirmation out of the other two, it changes the whole dynamic of the climax day. So as far as identifying climaxes, I think that the net advanced decline volume and net advanced declines, up-down volume ratio and down-up volume ratios are key. Those are the ones that we're watching very closely. The VIX, I think, is a great beginner tool as far as looking for climax type days. Just using that with Bollinger Bands, I think, is extremely helpful. All right, thank you. Does my work on individual stock symbols or on the indexes? As I noted in DP Diamonds, I do stock and ETF picks. The DP alert is not going to be giving you stocks. Diamonds is what does that. I find diamonds in the rough is what I like to call them. And that's where you'll get the stock and ETF picks. So I do stocks and ETFs, but today I concentrated on the market. And let's see, anything else? So remember, if you want a copy of that climax chart, just email me, Erin@decisionpoint.com, and I will get that climax chart to you, and then you can have it for yourself as a bonus for attending today's presentation, because I don't give that away. That's part of my report, but I'm going to give it away to you today. All right, that's all I got. David?